Welcome back to the shop. I've had a series of unproductive projects, or some setbacks and some learning experiences. I mean, nothing catastrophic or anything, but sometimes when you're working on stuff, it just, you just start to grind your wheels and you get into a mindset where, it's a rut, I guess. And if you hit 3, 4, 5, 10 of those in a row, you start to feel a little dejected. And it's not a big thing, but it's hard to explain because I enjoy my time in the shop. However, I can also be frustrated. Part of that frustration, part of the fun of being in the shop is finding problems and working through them and getting past them. But then on the other hand, it's just one thing after another. I mean, it just doesn't seem to stop sometimes, and you just can't get a break. And that's a different story. And I guess that's partly mindset, partly, just luck. And so anyway, I felt a little bit. I filmed a lot of stuff, and it's not worth making videos of because who wants to watch people screw up and make bad decisions all the time? Anyway, if it was something to learn from, I would be happy to air it, make a video of it, and say, hey, I'm a dummy, look what I did. Maybe you can learn from my mistakes, but there's nothing cerebral about any of the thing that I've been doing, at least as far as I can tell. Anyway, nevertheless, what I'm going to try to do is be productive, approach things with a better attitude, and make as practical a decision as I can when it comes to fixing things. Case in point, this is another Columbian vise. I've done one of these before. This has been a great vise. I'm going to give this to a buddy of mine, so I got to think about making one for myself again. So this Columbian is going to be a good little vise. However, right off the hop, I can't get this out, and I've bent that to no end, and it's just not going to come. So I'm going to cut that off, and I'll have to fabricate that, so maybe that'll be something new. Some bright spot in this, it'll be something different for the channel. So let me hack this off of here. So I got the vise disassembled. You can see I had to massacre this nut here. I'm going to have to remake that, but I don't think that should be too big of a task. I will probably have to... I can't cut threads with my mini lathe. This is not practical too, and plus I don't know how yet. So anyway, I'm going to try to find a nut that's as close of an approximation of this as possible. Be a carriage bolt, and then and reuse it. I was tempted, I might be tempted to just bolt this down on here, like so, and drill a second hole. You can see I've got one hole already. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet. Well, there's a couple of reasons why. But anyway, let me go ahead and just get this to the sandblaster, and then we'll get cleaning it up, and then we'll make a decision on what we're going to do with this at the end. Alright, so originally I had to hack the nut off of this to get the handle, the positioning handle off. I don't know exactly why that was seized on there so bad, but because a little bit rusty, but not ungodly or anything like that. Just sort of an awkward situation. But what I ended up doing was just taking a carriage bolt, and I understand the carriage bolt's probably not as hard or different grade or whatever, but anyway, it seemed to fit pretty good, and then the head actually ended up having a flat, if I ground it down, can sort of serve double duty, where the carriage, the square part of the carriage fits into the slot here, but then the head also catches the other side. So that sort of gives me an additional layer of this to stick to itself and not get into the same situation I had before. I went ahead and took some truck bed liner and painted the base of this. Now what I'm going to do is drill and tap some holes in this piece of plate steel. This is like a piece of 1/4 inch plate steel, and maybe more than that, but yeah, 3/16 plate steel or whatever. That's enough to drill and tap, and then I'm going to use some just 1/4 bolts. This isn't a big vise or anything like that, and it seems to fit through the hole. I have some bigger hardware, but it doesn't even fit through the hole. So anyway, I'm going to drill and tap holes in here and get ready to fix this on. I think some of you are going to be wondering about the surface on this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the mill scale on here. I have cleaned up, like the other vise, this is stainless steel, so that looks pretty nice. But I'm afraid that if I were to grind the mill scale off of this, it's going to make it more susceptible to rusting, and the mill scale actually does provide some protection. I was watching Adam Booth's workbench build, the A-Bomb 79, and he had probably a 1/2 inch thick or 3/4 inch, some ungodly thickness tabletop, and I asked him how he was going to surface it, and he was nice enough to respond back to me and tell me that what he was going to do is just leave the mill scale on there and wipe it down with just WD-40 or whatever he uses in his shop. But anyway, that was interesting to know that preserving and using the mill scale, or that there's actually some utility to the mill scale. But anyway, I'm gonna get some time lapse of drilling and poking some holes in this, and get to assembling this, because I've started cleaning this up, and the humidity, as you can just see, it start to flash rust. So I want to get this done. Alright, so I finished the small 3.5 inch Cleveland or Columbian vise. It's on the scale, or on this piece of 1/4 inch or 3/16 inch plate steel. This is slightly different than the other one I had done, in the sense that the base isn't stainless steel, and that when I turn this one, I very rarely do I need to turn it since it's mobile, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't really give me a lot of, I was hoping to be able to swing it out 180 degrees so that I could grab onto this tailstock. And I had a similar issue with this. I couldn't quite get all the way out with it, but I have a little bit more range of motion in terms of how I want to swivel it. Again, because it's not bolted down, it's really not important at all, but in the outside chance that I want to bolt this section down and hang it out over a piece of work or something to hang it off the bench, I could. But anyway, this is a neat little project because they're handy to have. Typically, for a long time I was using machinist vices, and these don't really have the mass. They're good for small stuff, but by and large I find myself using the larger vise quite a bit. I mean, I have a big vise, don't get me wrong, but when I'm sitting here, and in order to get the shot, to get things in focus for you guys, this is handy. It's not something that I would necessarily need all the time if I wasn't focusing on getting my work in front of you guys, in front of the camera. So whether you build one yourself, I wouldn't say that this is some super handy tool that everybody's going to need. I mean, there are instances where you want to sit down and work in the middle of your workbench and not hanging off the vise on the side. But anyway, for me, this is a tool that's effective, very functional, and I chose the green paint on here because I like the way that turned out on the plum ratchet. So I went ahead with the green on that and then just dusted the top off so that the numbers show up a little bit better, and then wiped it all down with some paste wax. I had thought about painting this entirely, but I know from experience that I'm really hard on these things, and this one needs to be just wiped down and cleaned up a little bit because I had to torch to it for quite a while the other day, so it's really discolored. But I'm going to probably just give this a quick once-over with the wire wheel, and it'll look back to new. But anyway, that one's getting given away to a buddy of mine, and then this is what you're going to see in my shop. So anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and for those of you that watch the channel all the time, I've got some other stuff coming up, but it's gonna there'd probably be a longer delay between the videos because I'm working on that lawnmower, and I want to try to do it all in one episode and not in a series of ones, because it'll be strung out over months and there won't be any continuity to it. Also, well, I've got you here, what I want to do is say that you know, I always appreciate the viewer comments, and one of them had asked me to blue the handle for this, and this isn't quite as dark blue as I would have liked it to turn out. I mean, it was pretty shiny before, so it did not. Damn it. Alright, sorry about that. One of the viewers had asked me to blue this, and I used the Perma Blue, the wipe-on Perma Blue, and it gave it a little bit different sheen. It's not night and day. I mean, you can see that it was shiny like that, and it sort of knocked it down. I think it's a good idea. Bluing it, probably could use another round of bluing. Maybe that would darken it up a little bit. But anyway, what I wanted to do was also, I think it was Chuck who had mentioned, he said, watch out when you're cleaning tools like this, because the dull finish can be cadmium. And cadmium, like so many other metals out there, it's really, you know, you don't want any particulate in your lungs. You don't want to have a bunch of grinding dust. I'm trying to be careful about saying sandblaster when it's actually media blaster. I use coal slag. My unit's a negative pressure unit, so it evacuates air from the inside of the shop and blows it outside. So anyway, it's removing stuff, so there's way less probability of inhaling anything. But anyway, the point is that when you have stuff that's like a dull finish, that might be indicative of a cadmium finish, and anything like that you don't want to be breathing in. Same thing with lead, and the same thing with beryllium. This might be brass, this might be beryllium, I don't know. I'm not going to mess around with it. You don't sand it, you don't grind it, you don't do anything to it to sort of turn it into particulates that can become airborne. Anyway, the sandblaster, the media blaster, same thing goes with sand. If you were blasting with like play sand or beach sand or something like that, that can, the frangibility of it, it actually turns that into a real light granular material that gets in your lungs and will give you something called silicosis, and that'll kill you also. So, I mean, sand can kill you, cadmium, beryllium, lead's not good. This has got a laundry list of stuff that's wrong with it. You want to be careful in the shop. I mean, people bust on me about the flip-flops and stuff, but when I'm working with dangerous stuff, You know, I use the nitrile gloves when I'm perma-bluing and working with some of the chemicals that you know just aren't good for you. So anyway, just I guess the rule of thumb I would say is that, you know, if it's rusty, it's probably steel or iron. You don't want to inhale that more than you have to either. But anyway, if it's rusty, you know, probably I would say that you've got a higher probability of it being just regular old steel and being easier to work with. However, if it's 100 years old and it's not rusty, be leery of it and do some research before you get into it with the wire wheel or the grinder or anything like that. So anyway, be safe out there. Work in a good ventilated area. Don't be afraid to have a dust mask. I've got a couple good 3M dust masks, and you'll see me using them when I paint. Very rarely do I record myself painting, but the Mueller box, you'll see me wearing one. But anyway, whether it be grinding, cutting, or working with your hands with stuff like this, you know, be careful. I do some research ahead of time, and you know, you can work yourself into a fit being scared of everything, and you should be to some degree. But anyway, you know, knowledge is important here, and I don't mean to preach to anybody, but just be careful out there. And again, thank you for pointing it out, because there's a lot of stuff that I don't know. The cadmium, you know, new to me. The same thing with beryllium. I thank you all. Alright, so anyway, sorry for preaching about that stuff, but that's just, I appreciate the feedback, and I just want everybody to be safe and enjoy their time in the shop like I do. So, thanks again for watching, subscribing, and commenting. Have a good day.